that the first 1 hour, we will have 4 speakers giving initial input. And the remaining period, we will open to all of us to raise issues, to raise questions, to make submission. But it's not necessary that you only come afterwards. There is a chat section also, and you can keep on typing your comments, your queries in that one, and my colleague Aarti or Anup will look into it, or I will look into it. And if there is any urgent reaction is required from any of us, we'll give it. Otherwise, at the end of the submission made by the key speakers, we will take up your case. To start with, I would like to acknowledge the support that I have received in organizing this workshop, which is being organized by the Indian Industrial Relations Association, and the support it has received from the India Office of the Freddie Gilbert Foundation, in particular, project advisor, Mr. Anup Shrivastava, and his team, Debashish Mazumdar, also Aarti Peters. The agenda for this webinar, I said, is in the background of the coronavirus, which emerged in India, which was noticed in India late January, and the first case in Kerala was reported when 1 person died in Kerala, and within next 6 weeks, it spread in practically all part of the country. And on 24th of March, the government of India announced locking down of the nation with effect from the 25th March. So that is the background scenario. Now, in that, while locking down the nation, the government imposed restriction on the movement of people, imposed directed shutting down of the business, directed shutting down of all the transport, and imposed other restrictions which directly or indirectly affected the world of work, both as an employer and as also the workmen. So in this is concerned. In the following months, various state governments have taken measures to check the movement of the workers from workplace to back to their state of domicile. And also, while looking into the business viability and available supply of labor force, things like increasing number of hours per day, things like suspension labor law, some of the labor law, these things came. So this we have in the background. What we will be looking at is a 3 agenda in the next 1.5 or 2 hours, is impact of COVID-19 on work and workplace, how it has impacted the coronavirus and the government policy to that effect. What are the new normals? And does new normals have impacted the job, will impact job and workers' right as defined by ILO, as also as specified in the national law of the country. And finally, in the background of our respective experience at the ground level, we will try to imagine the possible future in the post-COVID-19, whether there is a vaccine or no vaccine, but there are statements going on that this is going to stay with us for years to come, like any other virus. So what are the possible strategies that one could think of in seeing that not only the business survives, but business survives with a cleaner environment and with a decent work agenda, and there's a relationship between employer and employer which is healthy for the economic viability of the business. As I said, that we have a panel of speakers, Dr. E.M. Rao, which I don't know whether he's still joining us. and then we will have Mr.
Praveen, he's there. He's
okay. Professor Rao, he is Professor Rao, former professor at Xavier Institute, and also at IIRA. We have Mr. Partha Mehta, former principal advisor at Union Ministry of Labor. We have Sanjeev Lahiri, he is the chief human officer, chief, I'll come back details. Then finally, I have Arvind Shrotu, who is owner of Option Positive. So these four speakers will take four angles depending upon their the background they possess. Like Professor Rao is from the academic side, and he will look from the academic angle, the law angle, which he has extensively read, the law angle with regard to the present scenario, and what we should expect in the future. Mr. Mitra will look at the government policy point of view, and all the three angles, the 3 pointers has already been specified, but he will take the policy perspective, whether state or center, and whether government present policy or future policy, what should we expect in the context of government's overall focus, self-reliant India, if they are to achieve. Mr. Sanjeev Lahiri is from a company, and he will look for the company's management perspective. What this has to the management concern, and how the management is looking at the future scenario. And finally, we will have Arvind Shrotu, who has done a lot of work in the area of developing employer-employer relation, bargaining, other things. We will look at how the relationship between employer and employee continue to remain amicable so that the business survives in a most in time. And finally, we will have a statement from who is from the building and construction industry, but he represents Freddie Gilbert Foundation, which has a network of over 105 offices. So their network is spread all over the world, and it will be interesting to hear from him how other countries are trying to the situation. So this is what we will have in the course of this 1.5 hours or 2 hours. So to start with, if it things clear, to start with, let me invite the first speaker, Professor E.M. Rao, who did his PhD from Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Human Resource Management. He's an ex-professor of personnel management and industrial relations at the Xavier Institute in Bhubaneswar, as also former professor of XLRI in Jamshedpur. Book Industrial Jurisprediction, a Critical Commentary. May I request Professor Rao to please make his presentation. Thank you. Professor Rao. Arvind, can we have Professor Rao?
Yeah, he's unmute only.
My connection problem?
Aarti is muted.
Professor Rao, you are...
Ask him to unmute.
Professor Rao?
I had unmuted him. Just a second.
Can't hear him.
Now unmuted. Yes.
Professor Rao, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Unmute him, please. Aarti?
Yeah, I think he's been muting or by mistake himself. Just sir, you are unmuted now, but we are not able to hear you.
Sir, we can't hear you.
It's mute. It's mute. I can mute it.
I think he has some network issues, Praveen.
Again, he is muted.
Praveen is muting from his side. I think
Can you unmute him again?
he needs to join in again
Okay.
because of network issues, I guess.
Can you tell him that he should switch off and restart again? I'll give him a call. Can you, do you have his number? Sir, we can't hear you. So you have to reboot again. Switch off the computer and start again. Switch off the computer and start again. Hello. Okay. Okay, then yeah, we can't hear you. Yeah. Because your mic is muted. Give him 2 minutes. He's trying again. Give him 2 minutes, Aarti. He's trying again.
Sure.
This Hyderabad shouldn't have a internet this connection problem. I don't know why he's having connection problem.
हैदराबाद तो हब है आईटी का.
Why so? I'm surprised. Why Hyderabad should have it? If it was Ranchi, I can understand, but not here. Yeah.
The last mile is always important.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. If he is taking time, then I think we move on to Partham. Mr. Mitra, I think you can start, and then we'll see later. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, Good afternoon to all of you.
Connected. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon to all of you.
You have
Dr.
to
Praveen,
adjust your camera.
yeah.
I can see your mustaches, not face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Praveen Sinha has very aptly summed up the agenda for the day. We will have to stick to the last 4 months, but let me briefly give you a small background as to what was happening just before the COVID pandemic hit the economy. We were grappling with the whole set of problems relating to the demand slump and the economy not picking up. And the labor reforms were also moving in a particular direction, mainly towards the 4 codes which the central government had proposed, one of which got enacted, the code on wages. So the general direction was towards simplification and rationalization of labor laws, bringing the 44 central laws under the 4 codes. The state governments had, before the central government started doing the labor reforms, initiated their own process of reforms with the focus being mainly on 3 issues, 3 primary issues. One was to kind of improve the ease of doing business, do online registrations, speed up the process of online registrations, bring about self-certification, bring about compliance of labor laws through the e-governance mechanism, raising the threshold limits under the various legislations, more importantly, the Industrial Disputes Act, particularly Chapter 5B from 100 to 300, then kind of extending the ambit of the various labor laws to see that the coverage improves, particularly EPFO, the SIC coverage. As these policy changes were happening, the pandemic hit us, and a whole set of reform, the policy measures had to be taken. Broadly, I would say the policy measures globally could be divided into three parts. The first is the most immediate phase of giving income and livelihood support, including food support to the workers, and then slightly medium term to plan their livelihoods, and then in the long term about what kind of jobs would be sustainable. Now, having said that, the government in the meantime had announced the Prime Minister under the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana, policies aimed at what I was mentioning, the sucker problems of the workforce. The DBT process was kind of activated. The DBT beneficiaries received a particular amount, a 500 rupees amount. Then under the Jandhan accounts. Then food was being provided, 5 kgs of food grains per head per family, and 1 kg of pulses. So when this was happening, and then eventually we had the 20 lakh crore package, which is also known as the Atmanirbhar package of the government. Essentially, it was released in 5 phases. The first phase focused on agriculture, migrant laborers, MSMEs in different phases. Then certain important policy announcements were made, particularly affecting the farmers, the farming sector. The APMC acts got liberalized. Farmers were given the option of not going through the APMC mandis directly, and they were given flexibility in negotiating their prices. Then we had also a policy announcement on public sector. So like that, broad announcements were being made. But the pandemic again, actually opened up the fault lines in of the labor sector, if you ask me. The migrant workers problem, it was there at the background, but certainly once the migrant workers started leaving for their home states, with the media covering it extensively, I think this part of the fault line of the Indian labor sector, which was well known. I mean, we have had the famous Interstate Migrant Workers Act of 1979. Everybody knew that was being kind of enforced more in default rather than anything else. And then we also had the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act of 2008. That was again a legislation which was passed after the Second Labour Commission and the NCU, as National Commission for Unorganized Establishments, had given its report. So, we had the legislations with us, and the pandemic, the issues coming out of the pandemic, the migrant workers problem could have been tackled had we had taken the preparation in the sense that the immediate need was to extend succor, extend the income and the food support to the workers, arrange for the smooth their transshipment from the places from where they were working to their home states. So all that was done, but certainly not to the best of our abilities. I think more could have been done. I think that is the general consensus. It was not anticipated. And then on the Labour Ministry's front, they issued a whole lot of circulars saying that during this period, the jobs should not be curtailed. The workers should not lose their jobs, and the pre-pandemic income levels should be maintained. But then things took a different turn. Then the courts kind of intervened, and now I think there is a stage where the state governments and the central government are bound by the directions of the Supreme Court, which initially had hesitated to intervene. But I think better senses prevailed and the courts intervened, and various high courts have also been intervening from time to time, and they have been giving their directions. But the lesson that we have all learned is that simple passing of legislations perhaps is just a necessary condition, but it's not a sufficient condition without proper enforcement. Now, the problem about the migrant workers was that the registration and the issues as to how we should extend the benefits to them, unless the worker is kind of registered somewhere, unless the government has the details of the records, extending the benefits probably was not possible. And that is what actually had happened. That is why we had the all-round demands that the assistance which the government was rendering at to provide them with immediate relief of cash and kind was not reaching all the migrant workers, because frankly government did not have the records. And then when the Chief Labour Commissioner was directed to kind of take stock of the situation, he had in fact requested the state governments, and then I think he has come out with a figure of 26 lakhs, which again I think is a grossly underreported information about the migrant workers. So that is where these things stand. But in the meantime, the migrants have all returned, and the states have started taking steps for their rehabilitation. 116 districts have been identified, and today I think the Honorable Prime Minister is going to make the inauguration of the program to reskill them. Essentially, what the state governments have done is that they have kind of brought all these schemes together upfront, and the money that was earmarked for these schemes will now be spent for the relief and rehabilitation and skilling and livelihood activities. Convergence, as it is known as in the policy circles. So that is what I was referring to, the second stage policy intervention. The first stage was immediate succor and relief, and now is the second stage to provide them with livelihoods and proper skill training, which will see them through the medium term. But in the meantime, there are reports of industries, particularly the construction industry, stating that there is a shortage of workers. Now, some of the states have expressed the reservation, and there were unconfirmed reports of workers, the migrant workers who had returned home to their states in UP going back to Punjab. I think the cropping season had started there in Punjab. So, the migrant crisis is still on, but then a whole lot of new issues have now come up, particularly in the light of this pandemic, as to social distancing, hygiene norms, PPE, that is personal protection equipment, and then proper healthcare. All these issues have come up, including disruption of education, disruption of livelihood. And the reports say that the young among the migrant workers are the most affected. This is globally true, and more true in our case, particularly where we have almost 93% of the workforce in the informal sector as against the global percentage of 60%. So we have a large informal sector. So issues of social security have also become important. So these would be the medium-term issues which would come up. But from the flowing out of the pandemic, I think social distancing would have its implications on the labor intake, on the kind of relations which we have, because now that we probably will not have the one-to-one kind of an interaction with the employers and the employees. So social distancing, how this social distancing would be taken care of in the industries would be a major issue. Then we have the occupational safety and health issues, particularly for workers who kind of have to be at the field, who cannot work from home. I'm by and large restricting my discussion to the large informal segment of the workers who certainly do not have the luxury of working from home. So the health and hygiene issues, the occupational safety issues would become very important. I think the ILO policy frame gives sufficient emphasis on this aspect, apart from the other two, the short-term and the medium-term employment issues that I was mentioning. So once these transition impacts take place, then we will come to the issue of what kind of medium-term issues will emerge out of the pandemic. What kind of relationships, the employer-employee relationships will emerge out of the social distancing norms. What is the view of the trade unions? I think the need for a social dialogue is always there. It must be done, because this is a new situation where as Dr. Sinha has rightly said, that both employers and the workers are in a bad shape. And naturally, when both the parties are in a bad shape, both of them have to get together and decide a clear strategy. A social dialogue has to be started, where the government has also to intervene and facilitate this dialogue with its policy backup and the financial support that the government needs to give to these two sectors. So I think with these few opening observations, let me stop here, and I will be very happy to kind of respond to the issues that will be raised in the course of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mitra. We heard Mr. Mitra, and let me again kind of give his brief background, because I forgot to give when he started. That he's a former principal advisor to the Ministry of Labor and Employment, Government of India, and that's why he was speaking about the government policies, and both present and the future. And as I said before, that he was a director of V.V. Giri National Labour Institute in Noida, and also he worked with the Ministry of Rural Development. Aarti, whether Mr. Rao mic is fine, and can we go back to him?
Yeah, he's joined back.
Mr. Rao, can you make your presentation, please? Mr. Rao? Unmute your mic. Aarti, can you do it for him?
Yeah, I have done it, Praveen. He's unmuted, but I think he has some problem with the speaker.
We can't hear you.
Sir, can you
check
your computer's speaker if it's muted?
I think if it's a problem, can we ask him to do it from the phone itself rather than using the laptop? If he has a presentation, then I think if it's a different case. Otherwise, maybe he can just do it from the phone itself.
I think that's a good idea. Professor Rao, can you use your phone instead of the computer and log on Zoom and to the conference? can't hear you. We can't hear you. Again, he muted his mic.
Yeah, Praveen, I think his computer mic is speaker is also muted. That's why we are not able to hear. Because he is able to hear us.
Professor Rao, can you use your phone? Can you use your phone instead?
I don't know whether he has some help at home, who could, help him.
I know most of us are from the last century.
Unless his computer would need a specific join computer audio.
Yeah, something like that.
I think you should try to come via cell phone. And in the meantime, I think if you permit me, we try to move to the next speaker. Mr. Sanjeev Lahiri, let me start that I wrongly put you as a product of this because I'm connected there. So I thought everybody who is my friend is connected there somehow. He is the Chief Human Resource Officer at the GRP Limited, based in Bombay. And I think it has about 45 years history, the company.
We are in the 47th year now.
47th year, yes. And he has a lot of qualification. You can see that there's a lot of qualification. He's expert in the areas of talent acquisitions, staffing, compensation and benefit, talent management, learning development, etc., etc. What we are looking, Mr. Lahiri, what we are expecting from you is one is the startup where there will be major problem, the MSMEs there is a problem, and the companies like yours which uses a lot of labor. How the social distancing, how the work from home is practical in that sense. So may I invite Mr. Lahiri to make his presentation, please. Sanjeev.
Good afternoon, everybody, and it's really a pleasure, Dr. Sinha. Thank you for remembering me and everybody else. It's an honor to speak to all of you. I am still a learner of human resources. Yes, have been in the field for some time. Maybe inherited it from my parent. My father was also in human resources, but yeah, I'm still learning on the job. My current organization, GRP Limited, it is into recycling, and it's been probably one of the probably first. Yes, I'm saying under correction because we don't have any records to prove that. I mean, one of the first corporates in this field of recycling, that to rubber recycling, which was established about 47 years ago. An absolute startup those days. Now, I'll just come back to what the last 4 months has done for us. I'll say that, and as I keep on saying, it has just put us to a different world from where we were operating. Because manufacturing, we know, is it's pretty hands-on, and having spent a major part of my life in telecom, in trading and distribution, where things like work from home, remote management, doing a lot of things online and on soft copies, etc., are just it is as normal. For manufacturing, it is very different, because how can we really work unless we see the product, and unless the machines produce? That is what we live by. So now comes a day in March from when we were actually said, from tomorrow you are not going to work. So then what? And see, so COVID, and for us having our businesses over say more than 60 countries across the world, and a lot of business with China and Central Europe, Southern America, including the US as well. I mean, uh, we know we were kind of seeing it coming. So was it a shock for us? No, it wasn't. We were actually seeing it coming, but we were still, I would go on saying that, were we prepared for a complete lockdown where even we have to shut down our factories? We were not prepared for it. What it did. So once the factories were actually, I mean, though I mean, all the produce was sent and so on and so forth. And for organizations, the money cycle becomes very important, right? So thereafter comes the government directive, the issue of migrant and workers. I'm coming on to that, saying that okay, I mean, jobs are to be protected. We touch our hearts, and we are all, I mean, okay with that. Uh, Wages and salaries have to be paid. Now, with no income coming in, it becomes really, really difficult. And when we do not have an outlook, we don't know when we will start getting. We never expected that it will carry on for so long. While with all of these were going on, started the issue of the reverse migration, the way I call it. Yeah, people started to move. Now, for us, we have our factories in the industrial sectors of Gujarat. So southern Gujarat, deep in, I mean, interior Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu, and a part of MP. Now, what's the trouble? And okay, being in rubber recycling, we are very heavily dependent upon our supply chain, which is present across the country. And my main issue was not with my workers, but with my supply chain people, because out there, people, the issue of reverse migration, etc., started happening from there. So so there were plenty of tires lying anywhere, but we had nobody to pick them up and coming up to the scrap dealers to basically pass it on to us. And most importantly, the logistics chain got hit, we know. So with everything, coming under abrupt shutdown, or just an abrupt, I mean, grinding halt, if I can use that term, suddenly what happened, and we all know, China started opening up, orders started coming in. However, we were still not open up. That started the dilemma that, look, we till now we didn't lose orders, but now we started losing orders because the Chinese recyclers, they started operating. Yeah, so it hit us from both ways. Now, it actually, I was thinking when Dr. Sinha was actually, I mean, giving us the topic of today, what, I mean, as an organization, do we really not want to take care of our people? Of course we want to. We would want all of us, to be at least to not sleep hungry. That's the last thing that as any that as in any organization we would even think of. However, look at this thing. We have now this entire issue of contract labor, and I know Mr. Shokre has done some very, very good work on that. The contract labor comes to us, I mean, once in a while. There is a whole, I mean, I don't have 5 people coming to me every day from a particular thing. Now, suddenly when this happened, so they rotate around the factories. Suddenly, once this happened, I have a group of 20 or maybe 40 standing on my gate कि साहब खाना चाहिए. आपको हमें खाना देना पड़ेगा, हम आपके यहाँ पे काम करते हैं. Now, puts us in another thing. I'm sure the same dilemma that the governments are going through, that we really don't know who is the person and who must we support with certain papers. Right? Puts us in a dilemma. We still took it on, and through our own, I mean, CSR initiatives, we started giving food kits. But when you give 100 food kits to the 100 people, there are 200 other waiting. What do you do with them? Yeah, and the situations were pathetic. It is really, it was indeed pathetic. Comes in our own workers and few of our own, I mean, friends from the union, that, okay, you have paid us wages. What happens to our variable pay? You have not paid us production bonus. I had to tell them, we have not produced. So where does the question of production bonus comes in? No, but in that case, then you have not paid us our wages. And there we had to sit down and actually say, guys, we have to survive it together. We are in it together. The company has not made a single cent since February. We are still maintaining it. And who took the brunt were all the white collared employees, where we volunteered, plus we had to mandatorily do some, some salary cuts and so on and so forth. And we say, guys, we are trying to actually, I mean, ensure that all of us sustain this crisis. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months is fine, but then starts the entire thing, that how long. And then we got the intimation, okay, Gujarat was the first to open up, and we can open up with 12 hours. The moment we started opening up with 12 hours, even before starting the work, the union comes in saying that, what happens to our OT? I said, guys, let us start the production. Because now we have orders. We have started getting orders from Far East, including China. Shipping lines have opened up. Few logistics channels have started working. Let us start to make the best use of it. नहीं साहब, पहले ये साइन करो, उसके बाद और अपना और हमारे LTS वाले इंक्रीमेंट दो. Here comes on the other thing. Look, so there are the government policies, right? The employers also had to, I'm sure a couple of employers organizations approached the Supreme Court against the March 29th MHA circular and so on and so forth. Good, bad, I'm not getting into it, but everybody was desperate to survive. And then comes, these kind of demands, if I can use the word, wherein we are actually trying to say, the guys, we have to survive. And right now there is no question of right or wrong. It is survival for each of us, because if the company survives, you do, right? And also at the same time, if the workers don't come to work, the company doesn't. It is a symbiotic, it is a mutual relationship. So we had to do a lot of counseling at that level, and thereafter came on, but yeah, thankfully all amicable. Comes into the other point, and okay, that yes, business has been hit, orders are coming back, not to the level that we expected, but in some form. And then there is the social distancing norm. 50% is very, optimistic, aspirational. We are not into essential services, so we got only a leeway to do 33% of my workforce. Now, how do I produce the whatever amount I need to produce with my 33% workforce? It is actually not possible. So therefore, makes us to push the agenda of things like automation, clubbing the jobs together, which from a people's perspective means lot of multi-skilling, which is actually coming up, and we are in the process of doing it right now. Because unless we have these transferable skills, so somebody has to work in section A today and maybe section B tomorrow, or even in the first half and second half. And unless we have these skills in this kind of a situation, we will not be able to survive. B, again comes this willingness to do it, because for the last 47 years, I'm talking only about my organization, we have worked in certain, in this particular way. So operator A will work only on machine A. He or she will not do machine B. So it is a situation, and I'm seeing it's a very interesting situation, where we are learning, where we ourselves are learning every day, passing on these messages, trying to train people as much, making them as much effective at work we do. And I think that this is now the new normal. Irrespective of, I'm sure governments will do what they can do, but a lot of things, I think, with what Mr. Mitra had also alluded to, that just a legislation is not enough. Implementation of it and the way we adopt that to our own work practices makes any organization and the environment around it successful or not. Yeah, my 2 cents, Dr. Sena. I'll be keen to hear and learn from others. You're muted, Dr. Sena.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lahiri. It was nice listening to you, and also the concerns that you have rightly expressed, that how do you do business with 33% of the workforce, and not to go for automation, because that's a major challenge coming up. That a country which has labor as a major issue, job as a major issue, now the conditions are coming where you need to move towards the automation. So that is one issue. I think I fully agree with you. It's coming up. That is challenge coming up before all of us. Now, let me move on to the third. Fourth speaker, I think. Let me, and again, I will try again later on with Dr. Rao, but let me move on to Mr. Arvind Shrotti, and as I introduced him before, that he owns a company, Option Positive, and is based in Pune. Prior to starting a company, he had worked as an interest group educator of an interest group, a trade union. But in the course of a few years, when he started, his specialization has come to the area of collective bargaining, advising companies how to enter into social dialogue and also negotiate. And in the last so many years, he has provided consultancy to various organizations like Hindustan Lever, Voltas, No-Sale, Philips, and so on and so far. Let me invite Arvind Shrotti, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I am audible?
Yeah.
Huh. Good afternoon. I will not take much time because all participants as well as the speakers are quite experienced, and everybody is aware about the problem. It's not the thing that nobody is aware about the problem. Even before Corona also there were a number of issues, and as earlier speaker already told about it, so I don't want to go into that. There was a issue of unemployment. Unemployment was increasing, the investment was going down, the capacity utilization of the plants was also drastically came down. The CMI data is showing that 55% capacity utilization on an average in India. So yes, but fundamental question is that what is the difference between such kind of situation we have seen in earlier also. In 1929 there was a big recession, and human being has seen that kind of recession, but this recession is different. Whichever is going to come now, it is totally different, because earlier whatever we have seen, there was a demand crisis, and demand crisis was because of low purchasing power. Low purchasing power got converted into low demand got converted into reduction in capacity utilization. Reduction in capacity utilization got converted into no investment or less investment. So it was a vicious circle. But now the problem will be, or what I am experiencing in Pune, in addition to demand crisis, there is a supply crisis. And this is how to deal with that kind of crisis. Because of globalization, the whole supply chain is global, and that whole there is a total disruption in the supply chain management, in the supply chain itself. And how to deal with that, it's one of the big aspects. Second aspect is that what earlier speaker Mr. Lahiri have already talked about, that sometime in some organization there is a demand is there, but they are not getting labor. So that kind of also problem we are experiencing. And for example, in Bajaj, they are having a good export order, but they are not getting labor. So the contractors are moving here and there to collect the labor. He start at 7 o'clock in the morning, and sometime he gets, sometime he don't get. So that kind of crisis is there, even on the supply of labor. So on one side, we are experiencing high level of unemployment. On the other side, getting a labor is also one of the issue. But I don't want to talk much about this. These are the issues. Most important thing, what is to be done. That's the most important aspect. But the thing is that at the same time, there is a need to focus more on what kind of employment model we would like to have as a country. The most important, and nobody is talking about that. Everybody is talking about labor law, this labor law reform and all that kind of thing. So for example, and everybody is talking, people means that's a perception of the various economists, and which is the wrong perception, that they think that in the organized sector the situation is better and in the unorganized sector situation is bad. That's not the case at all. In the organized sector, because I will now focus only on organized sector, I have taken 147 companies in Pune and around Pune, and 70% manpower is either trainee, temporary, casual, contract, earn and learn, NEEM and whatnot. We have given number of categories, but the issue is not whether they are trainee, temporary, permanent and all that. Issue is that under the name of flexibility, we have created a model of exploitation. 70% of the working class in the organized sector are getting 10,000 rupees wages or less than 10,000 rupees wages. So if I am getting 10,000 rupees wages, of which 3,000 to 4,000 goes into rent, rest of the money, that is husband, wife and 2 children, how much is left? It's hardly 5,000, 6,000 rupees is left. So if you convert it, it comes to 40 to 50 rupees per day per person in the organized sector. I'm talking about organized sector. I'm not talking about the unorganized sector. So what kind of education he will give to his children and what kind of food he will give to his children? So we are creating a generation which will be physically weak and mentally weak, and that will be the future labor supply. Second aspect, I have already did number of experiments in the various companies, and that has to be I will suggest that you just think about it. For competitiveness, cost is more important than the rate, but the whole energy is going on the rate, labor rate, material rate, energy rate, but the rate is not important, cost is more important. I will just give you the example. In one of the company, that is Sobha developer, they are in construction, they have a very different kind of business model. So the workers were getting 7,000 rupees wages and the labor cost was 17%. I worked there for about 4 months and I converted the whole situation. I increased the wages from 7,000 to 17,000 and I reduced labor cost from 17% to 12%. So here is the question. Most important thing is that for competitiveness and for sustainability, cost is more important than the rate. And we are paying low rate because people are talking about if we remove the labor law, we will be competitive. Competitiveness is totally different ball game. It's a very different kind of scenario. It requires a very different ecosystem. Whether we have that kind of ecosystem in this country or not, means people are, it's a sort of a myth that the China manufacturing will come to India. Yes, there may be opportunity, but whether we are capable enough or we are going to make ourselves capable enough to take up that responsibility. The problem is not with only the unions and the workers, it is also with the management, it also with the employer, and it is also with the government. There is a need that this future lies in more and more collaboration rather than conflict. So are we going for any kind of collaboration? Is there any kind of possibility? A tripartite structure, employers, unions and the government must come together, sit together and work on the issue of what kind of employment model is required, what kind of social security is required, how, from where it will come, is there any kind of possibility? Because in dynamic economy, I am very clear, though I am working with the union, I am very clear, in dynamic economy, making everybody permanent is not possible. So you have to make a combination of fixed manpower and the flexible manpower. And the flexibility doesn't mean exploitation, that has to be addressed. If that kind of flexibility is there and less exploitation or no exploitation, I think that there is a n number of possibilities. So most important aspect is whether we would like to do that or not. Now I'm experiencing the confidence level of the employer, confidence level of the worker is going down. How we are going to boost up that because the economy is not just figures, it have very different kind of there is also an aspect of non-tangible. Non-tangibility is the confidence of the people. Yes, we will come out from this crisis, there is a possibility, and let us do that, let us work together. And definitely means here in Pune, yes, there are proposals coming up, that is the wage cut or reduction in some kind of facilities. So that kind of issues we are discussing, and every day we are solving the problem. It's not all such kind of issues are not difficult, but the most important thing is that trust level, whether, because the migrant labor, people were talking about migrant labor, but the most important thing, it was the indicator to this country that they don't, people don't trust neither government nor union and nor management. They were helpless. And when what I told you, that 70% of the working class is either trainee, temporary, they were not getting proper wages, they had no saving. What they will do? They will go to their native place. They thought that at least I will survive there. But there was no such kind of system where we will take care of people. Whether we are in a position to develop, जिसको मैं बोलता हूं कि रीति और नीति, सिर्फ अच्छी नीति बता के होने वाला नहीं, अच्छी रीति चाहिए, और सिर्फ अच्छी रीति लाके होने वाला नहीं, अच्छी रीति चाहिए. तो रीति और नीति का संगम करने वाला सिस्टम हम बना सकते हैं या नहीं बना सकते हैं, that's the question, that's the big question, and it will require a very different kind of mindset. Because for last 5 years I'm conducting programs for Chinese unions and Chinese management together in Turin, Geneva, in Turin, that is ILO Institute. I know what they are doing. For example, they have increased their purchasing power in last 4 to 5 years. They have increased their wages because they are creating domestic market, and we are not learning. We are thinking that our export, we were thinking that we will export. In last 5-6 years, our export growth, you just see what we are doing. Our export growth, which was 6 years before, it was 20%, it came down to 0%. Now there is no growth in export. So all such kind of issues are there. I don't want to go into economic indicator just now. There are n number of aspects, and let us accept the truth. What is उसके लिए जेल में से बाहर निकलने की आवश्यकता है. हम सब जेल में हैं. कोई नाम के जेल में है, कोई सत्ता के जेल में है, कोई पैसे के जेल में है. We are in very, and कोई past limited experience के जेल में है, कोई past limited knowledge के जेल में है. I am of the opinion that let us come out from that jail and just try to see what are the possibilities, and you will get number of, because we are in innovation, we are good. Only the thing is that we are not giving opportunity. My experience is that we have done number of experiments, and it is possible to come out with solutions. Indians are not हम ऐसे नहीं हैं, हम we may be much better even than the China, but most important aspect is कि whether we would like to do that or not. अभी इतने भी प्रॉब्लम बताया. क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 is that who owns the problem? Everybody will talk about problem, but nobody will own the problem. Neither employers will own the problem, nor unions will own the problem, and neither government will own the problem. यदि ऐसा है तो हम सिर्फ प्रॉब्लम ही डिस्कस करते बैठेंगे और हम कुछ करेंगे नहीं, तो मुझे लगता है कि we are doing mistake. It may be possible. And then the next question is that artificial intelligence, robotics, IoT, machine learning, that industry 4.0, which is going to come very speedily. And how we are going to respond as a union, as a management, as a government, that is also the scenario is going to change rapidly. And in future, most of the time, we will start talking about BC and AC, that is before Corona and after Corona. So the after Corona के बारे में यदि बात करनी है, तो मुझे लगता है कि इससे challenging, but at the same time, I can see various opportunities also. And during our question answer session, I will talk about it, that there are number of possibilities, number of opportunities, and whether we are ready. You just see this country, I have all the calculation, this country is using capital in most inefficient way. We only focus only on labor efficiency, but we don't focus on capital efficiency. So are we going to work on capital efficiency also? Labor efficiency पे तो काम करना ही पड़ेगा, लेकिन capital efficiency, I have data of around 300 companies, and all 300 companies are well-known companies. They are using their capital in most inefficient way. So the competitiveness, ये सिर्फ worker को low wages देके labor को हटा के competitiveness आने वाला नहीं है. So there is a need to think differently. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arvind. Thank you, Arvind. There's a need to think differently. And that is the purpose of all these discourses that are being organized, because the problem that we are faced with is uncommon. And yes, intention has to be good. Yes, we want to have all the good things, but we need to have knowledge of the steps to reach that good thing. Okay, before I go to Anup Shrivastava, can we again try with Professor Rao? Professor Rao? Let's try again. Aarti?
No, I think that he having a speaker problem.
Yeah, Praveen, he has some speaker issues because he's unmuted right now and he is speaking, but we can't hear you.
There was a suggestion from someone saying that when he opens Zoom, there's a place where he says that yes, I used
He has to join
audio.
in the audio also, yes.
So I don't know whether he has done that one. Let's try once more again before I request Anup. Professor Rao, can you try again?
He's again muted now.
I need to go there too.
वहाँ पे कोई है नहीं हेल्प करने के लिए.
Okay.
फोन से नहीं तो ट्राई करना चाहिए.
I've suggested. Can you use telephone number, your telephone to speak? Log on to Zoom through your telephone. Professor Rao? Oh, he doesn't have smartphone, I think. Cell phone should be there, yeah.
होगा. अगर WhatsApp है तो स्मार्टफोन है.
Professor Rao? We are missing your input. I was so much counting on your input.
एक बार आप उनसे फोन पे बात करके देखिए क्या कह रहे हैं.
वो कह रहे हैं आवाज नहीं आ रही. He's trying his. I think he's not able to understand. Okay, I think we move on to the input where we will have focus of the building and construction industry. As I said that Anup is now working with the FES as its project advisor, but before he was extensively involved in building and construction industry. And I'll request him to again look at those 3 points and bring in his input, dividing the dividing the building and construction into two segments. One is the manufacturing and other is the services. How does this impact the COVID-19? Mr. Anup.
Yeah. Okay. At the outset, allow me to thank the Indian Industrial Relations Association and Dr. Sinha for organizing this webinar on work and workplace relations in post-COVID-19 era. And as FES, we are very pleased to be uh, supporting in this initiative. I think, we have got a good insight from the three speakers whom we have heard till now. Actually, I would have really loved to hear Professor Rao, but unfortunately, we are not able to do that, at least for now. Obviously, one of the fears which we all are subjected to, currently is the fear of the, the pandemic, which we all are facing. And for many of the workers, their problems got further compounded, with the workplace challenges they face, and which some of the previous speakers have already mentioned, the fear of losing job, maintaining social distance at the workplace, and also in maintaining the basic health and hygiene as the work resumes gradually. For the some of the fortunate ones, we have been talking about, work from home offices. For many of these fortunate ones, of course, there was this possibility wherein, their homes turned into their home offices overnight. But then, as has been mentioned by some of the speakers already, that for the larger share of the working population in our country, it is definitely not practically possible. Of course, for a variety of reasons, because whether it is manual work, having, the kind of smart equipments which are required at home. Of course, when in the context of building construction workers, definitely, this is definitely not a possibility. And construction workers, we have seen, the long walks the migrants have been taking, covering thousands of miles. And we have also heard about the train journeys have been, very difficult for them. This actually, really exposes the kind of vulnerability these workers face. And also it really sets the context of the larger society we are all living in. And then, this vulnerability is something which has not just emerged from nowhere. I think in any society, it is the government, the employers, and the workers' organizations who are collectively responsible for building a conducive work environment with the broader objective of, creating decent jobs for the workers, profit for the employers, and for the government in general to achieve the desired level of industrial growth, and in paving the path of a country's economic uh, development. I think, for the building construction workers, this entire period has been a period in which they have faced a lot of difficulty. Building, when this lockdown was imposed on 25th of March, and we could see immediately, within a few days, a lot of these migrants, which I mentioned earlier, were going back to their native places. A lot of these migrants were basically, a major chunk of them are the construction workers who are, working at different construction sites, small sites, big sites. And there was definitely, we have the building and other construction workers legislation, and a part of it, talks about formation of construction workers welfare board. There was some immediate relief, which was announced by the central government, wherein they had written to the various states to consider, extending support to the workers through, the state construction workers welfare board. Now, in many states, this kind of the governments responded positively. There was some support doled out, but then the quantum varied from state to state. Like in Delhi, it was announced that they will pay. They paid 5,000 rupees. In some states, they paid 1,000. In some states, they paid 2,000. But then, a lot of these workers had by then already decided that since there was delay in the for them in getting this support, they had already decided to go back. Now, again, see, there has been a major disconnect, the way, these entire things have played out in the recent months. Just imagine, these workers have gone back, and now, with the resumption of the economic activities, uh, several of these employers are now, in a dilemma. How will they get these workers back? In that we have seen in recent times, there have been instances, like in Hyderabad, there was this major group, which got back some of the skilled workers. They paid for their flight ticket, and they said, we'll pay you higher wages, you have to come back. So these kind of developments have started to take place. So some people, are some workers, like the ones I mentioned, probably they are being contacted through their contractors, subcontractors, that they should come back and join work. And the others who have already gone, they have to rely heavily upon what Mr. Mitra had mentioned, upon the income and the food support which has been announced by the government of India as part of the Atmanirbhar package. So I would say, see, work and workplace relations are not something which are going to remain constant. There will always be, there will always be these ups and downs, and there will be a certain level of dynamism will be there. And this has happened all over the world, and definitely India is no exception. The pandemic is, of course, a very good example, and validates, that there will be dynamism, and we are all for the WHO and the likes of the scientific community. They have been time and again emphasizing that probably there will be more of such kind of pandemics in the future as well. So I think we are working in a very kind of a very fluid environment. I think this is really a time also wherein all three key stakeholders, the government, the employers, or even the workers organizations have to do a bit of introspection. How the workplaces can be made safe, which is of course a major concern in these COVID times. How the workplace can be made safe so that the workers can continue to work. How can workers feel confident that their jobs are also safe? One of the major fallout of this pandemic has been people are losing their jobs. And of course, for employers, the concern is to make their business up and running, and how they could make profit, and also retain shareholders value. As been mentioned earlier, in our country, workplace relations have been under great stress in recent times. The labor law reforms process, which was initiated in 2014, and then of course continued with greater urgency, from 2019, last year onwards. And there have been, a lot of debate, and it has been highly contested issue between the three stakeholders. So I think probably one of the reasons is lack of enough consultations involving all the stakeholders. There are of course going to be differences, but then if there had been constant dialogue, probably that might have helped in ironing out some of these differences, and probably in laying down foundation on the basis of mutual trust. I think employers should also be more considerate towards their employees or the larger workforce. I mean, labor is definitely not a commodity, and they ought to be dealt with more compassion. Employers should also treat their workers with greater dignity, and by providing them decent wages, better and safe workplaces, access to social protection, and of course honor their rights at the workplace, and also be committed to dialogue with the workers organizations representatives. Similarly, for workers organizations should be also be coming to understand the industry or the factory dynamics they are all working in. Rights are important, but these rights also have some responsibilities. Workers organization should be forthcoming, of course, in rendering these changes. What Mr. Shrauti was talking about these, the, workplace changes, adoption of new technology, automation. These changes are there, and they will be taking place. But then, if workers are affected, then suitable transition programs have to be put in place, which could ensure their employability in the factory or even elsewhere. And also that there should be reskilling opportunities should be created for this kind of workforce, so that as much as possible the workforce can be retained and they can continue in employment. Then lastly, the government is I think a big binding factor, and is obviously responsible for creating the right kind of policy environment, which could actually strike the right balance between the economic development, profiteering, and also safeguarding the interests of the working population. See, I heard that the government was working very hard on a new industrial policy, and probably it is on the anvil. I saw some read in some places. Work has been going on, but then it has not officially come in. But I think this industrial policy should definitely lay a strong foundation for a balanced and sustainable growth, and definitely the benefits of which can be shared by all the sections of the society. So can we something like can we strive for a minimum standard employment, wherein wages, social security, workers right can be ensured. And I think lastly, a very strong dialogue within these three constituents, collectively whom we call as the tripartite, with the pillars of tripartism. I think it is very important that somehow this has to be reignited, and also that a strong mutual trust has to be built upon going forward from here. So I would like to end here. Thank you.
Thank you, Anup. Thank you, Anup. There was one issue that was raised, and that is with regard to that COVID-19 has led to some of the workers going back to the villages, or the company has closed and the company has somehow washed their hand with a certain portion of the workforce. Has there been any such move insofar the companies, the floor level experience is concerned? The second point that comes is that, and that is as a follow-up of the comment made by Mr. Lahiri, is that the question of automation. We live in a country where labor is in surplus supply, and the cost of labor is much more higher, much more lower than the cost of capital. Now, in that case, what is the thinking of the company with regard to replacing labor with capital? That is the initial two question. Then, before I go to others, anyone can answer. Anyone of the speaker.
Can I take that, Dr. Sana?
Yeah.
Okay. First and foremost, see, it is not only a matter of capital and labor, because it is a matter of bringing efficiency in the system. So therefore, it cannot be that it is either labor or capital. There are a lot of things that labor does today. If I give you our example, now I have, as I say, that my organization has been in existence since last 47 years, and we have a lot of our processes were set up at that point in time, which were essentially manual, which means feeding the machines, and people have to actually carry load about say 50 kgs approximately, on their head to shift from one machine to the other. Is it not a huge health risk for anybody? It can actually break a spine a little here and there. So therefore, it is to make the work more efficient as much. The point of working, working with much less manpower due to the social distancing norms, yes, it comes in. However, I think the key question which most of the organization will be looking at, how do we build in efficiency and thereby put in more automation? That brings me to this point of, then once automation is built in, is our labor force ready also to take on these new jobs? Are they ready to get multi-skilled? Because this in this situation where for companies like us, where the main selection criteria for that kind of a job role would have been physical strength, education was not as important. And I do have a sizable chunk of my workforce who come from very, very humble backgrounds. Yeah. For them, working in a factory, working in a field makes no difference till the time they're making their daily wage. But so and they're happy doing this job. Incidentally, when we show them the machine, they say कि साहब इससे होगा नहीं, हमको दिखा तो हम इससे अच्छा करके दिखाएंगे. So this mind set shift, I think, is very much required. More and more, I think I think Mr. Shruti had spoken about the entire globalization thing. Now, for us, our customers, a lot of our customers follow the very strict health norms, health certification norms of the European Union. So for there, if any of these any of these activities are involved in the manufacturing process, then I am not a supplier for them anymore, because I am not taking care of that human being out there due to my process. Right. So if I build in all this things, all these thoughts on my workplace, I think the only way to make the workplace much better, and also for each one of us, including my worker friends, is to adopt the new, and also when the company is also investing in getting them getting them trained. I'm happy to offer them, either courses, some vocational training, maybe move their jobs, and out there, I think. So this is what is going to define the relationship is between the willingness. It needs two hands to handshake, right? हाँ, अभी हम handshake नहीं करेंगे, हम नमस्ते ही करेंगे, but to work together, it is this, and that is what we need.
Okay, Girish, you wanted to say something? Girish is from the Siemens Union. Girish Astekar is the General Secretary of Siemens Workers Union. Aarti, unmute his mic.
Yeah, I heard Mr. Lahiri and all. That is, one thing is right, that yes, there was no business in this period, and hence many companies have opted for such thing. So finally, what has happened? The generally most of the companies we know, everybody we know that nobody likes to follow the law, and the same thing has happened. Nobody has followed the law which has been passed under Disaster Management Act, and they have said that we cannot do it. So that is the nutshell. Finally, the law is there, they have passed it, but many companies, uh, basically for many contract workers, finally they refrained from getting their salary. Then what is the use of passing the law? What is the use of passing the rules and regulation under the act? Because then finally it has been decided by the company not to pay. And then we say that everybody should follow the law. So that is, I can say that it means, I don't know what word we should give it to this. Everybody wants to follow the law. Everybody likes to follow the law. But when it comes to such thing, nobody wants to follow. And now we want to make changes in labor law. I don't know where we are leading to, where we are leading to, because many companies, now Mr. Larry said that yes, there was no business, how we can pay you the uh, uh, variable thing. But the variable thing is the part of the salary which we have agreed with the unions that yes, out of your 100 rupees, 80 rupees will be fixed, 20 rupees will be in
Variable.
variable thing. So it means it's a part of the salary, and the the direction passed by MHA it was very clear to consider those workmen are on duty. So once you consider they are on duty, you should consider that they are eligible for that pay. That is the problem. But nobody has followed that. Yeah, I'm very lucky that our company has followed that. Many big companies have followed that. Yes, they are not gone for the big job cut, big salary cut, but it has happened with a lot of this contract workers. And what has happened then? Then whole buying capacity of the society has gone down. And then we are saying that some people should buy from our market. So we have, means whole industry has axed the domestic market, and then they only expect that the domestic market should grow. So I don't know how to connect that.
Girish, what is the proposal?
The proposal
What is the
is,
solution you have?
yeah, solution is, you see, it's it's very clear. Solution they have found. Capital found the solution. And then we have to only be in line with that, because see, Arvind has spoke this thing in many what you can say, in many forums. But the main issue is what? Main issue is we have to increase the capacity of buying capacity of whole society. So we should really see that how that society will grow. Okay, those who are in organized sector, somehow they will get the things, but we should go deep into the contract workers. They must be paid their full wages, because company has earned. See, we have to connect it with the capacity to pay, and accordingly those companies should pay. Yes, we know that once paying the this salary, that company should not close down, that company should not go in loss. I can understand that, but then it should link with the capacity to pay, the amount of reserves that company has, and accordingly they should pay to their contract workers. I'm focusing the contract workers only, and there should be now, yes, when we are changing the labor law, one enactment should be there during the pandemic, full salary to be paid to the across workman or across working class of India. That can be one point uh, while making the changes in labor law. Thank you very much.
Okay, Satya Prakash, Professor Satya Prakash. We have a number of colleagues from Nepal. If anybody wants to raise question, um, you can raise your hands. But let me invite Professor Satya Prakash.
Yes, sir. I have a question for Arvind, sir. He was mentioning about capital efficiency and labor efficiency. Labor efficiency is already there. Capital efficiency, will you be able to elaborate, sir? Because you said that you will do it in question and answer session.
Yeah. I will just give the example. Just now, for example, I collected a data of all the hospitals in Pune. Apollo Hospital, Jupiter Hospital, all major hospital in Pune. And I asked them, what is your occupancy rate? So they told me the average occupancy rate is 52%. So you are invested capital for 100, and then we negotiated on behalf of union that if 1 lakh workers will get associated, means if we will tie up with those hospitals, so how much concession you will give? So they told me that if you get attached with our hospital, we will give 40% concession, because their capacity will get improved and the cost will go down. Here, everybody have increased their capacities and utilization of capacity is hardly 55% or 50%. Some plants, some companies are working on 40% capacity utilization. So this is the inefficiency of capital. And that's the reason I'm not going into the all details, but the thing is that the data is very clear showing that the inefficiency of the capital is much higher in India as compared to other countries.
Okay, let me invite Professor Dr. Das, Subhesh Das. Dr. Subhesh Das is the Principal Secretary to the Government of West Bengal. And I think he has other designation also. Do you have any comments, sir? Unmute, Arte.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. We can.
We will get, every part of the society will get what they were getting. But it is now most difficult thing to go back to that level. Especially it is more difficult for small farms. Small farms, for them it is the most difficult thing. I think let us hope, let us wait and see if we can survive through this crisis. We will survive, but how it goes. Anyhow, I don't have many things to say. But
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Das.
yeah.
Dr.
But
Savant?
it's a good initiative taken by you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Savant?
Yes, Praveen, I'll just take a couple of minutes. Only 2-3 things. One question, of course, this purpose of your taking initiative was to try to understand what will be the responsibility of all the stakeholders working in the this industrial relations and area, etc. So immediately what I feel that we must think, because this COVID will not be for permanently for years together. It may be for a few months. But during this period, what is happening is there is no industrial transformation. It is total economic transformation. And that need not be explained much. So what will be the size, what will be the nature of the economic activities where industrial relations or employee-employee relations will be existing in future, where one has to take care of protecting rights of the labor. So that is small scale industry, large scale industry, which were explained earlier by Mr. Lehari, etc. Of course, this one another question I wanted to put before Shruti is that he's talking about a part of the capital. Hospital and hospitality is not the economy. Actually, that is the underutilization of efficiency, what is mentioning is improper deployment of capital, which is not in the hand of the industrialists, but is in the hands of the policymakers.
Yes,
Or other people interested in labor group should think of how the capital is deployed, in which sector it is deployed, so that employment can generate it, or employment can get protected, or the labor rights are protected. It is efficiency of capital is a question, measurable quantity, so it can be how the efficiency is going down. Efficiency is not maintaining capital in oil industry, or efficiency of capital is not maintaining health industry, or efficiency capital is not maintaining automobile industry. I think it may not be possible inefficiency of capital in those industries. He has showed example of hospital and hospitality. That is things I wanted to mention.
Okay, Mr. Kripa Shankarji. Unmute yourself.
Hello.
Bole.
Are you listening to me?
Yeah, yeah.
No. But you see, I have carefully heard the opinions of all learned people. What I want to say is, you see, I agree to disagree so far as the case of this codification and change of labor law is concerned. See, government is doing something like that. One day they are withdrawing everything from the powers of INTC, and workers will be without any, you see, they cannot go to court. Their duties are, you see, time is extended. Number of things are there, you see. So this is a very serious matter. And the main thing is, you see, all trade unions of India, they are, you see, opposing it. There are dharnas, demonstrations, strikes, and government is not talking with them. And if you see negotiation between the employer and employees is not there, so what is going to happen? I think there will be a very serious agitation in India. What is happening in the country? Nobody is going to understand this position. There is a, you see, privatization, deregulation. Indian Railway is going to be privatized. You see, some labor laws, I tell you, there is an accident on the road. Every 3 minutes, there is a fatal accident. And in whole of the year, some 2 lakhs people are died. And government is not even, you see, listening to the ILO convention, I tell you. Government has not implemented 153 of the ILO convention. It is about the working hours and duties of a driver.
Sir, give us sir, Kripa Shankarji, give me a specific proposal with regard to transport sector. Specific proposal.
Okay, okay.
Not larger issue.
Okay, thank you. I want to tell you that government is amended Motor Vehicle Act and Transport Workers Act. Transport Workers Act may there is a provision about the you see, crews, about the duties of a driver, about the who are, you see, road transport workers. It has been given in the Road Transport Corporation Act 1961. It has been scrapped, and something has been added with the General Code. And so far as the Motor Vehicle Act is concerned, you see, Motor Vehicle Act 1987 is entirely scrapped. We are opposed to it, but now it is now Motor Vehicle Act 2019. And according to this act, every bus can be given permit. There will not be a, you see, privatization and you see, privatization means all state transport undertakings. There are 53 state transport undertakings in India, and they have some monopoly on certain routes. Government will issue permit according to that. Every bus operator can be issued permit.
Okay.
See, there,
okay. Thank you.
There are many things. I'll send you later on.
But Keshav Prasad ji from Kathmandu. You were saying something?
Thank you, Professor Sinha, for inviting me and my students
Yes, please.
in this seminar. And we get very much benefited of listening to you all Linux people from very sectors of a big economy in India. So we just wanted to learn from you people here, not to put any questions and other comments and other things. Just we wanted to learn from you.
Glad to,
We benefited from very much of it. But
glad to see you. Glad to see you.
Yeah, and very small query of mine. One is might be the informal sector in India and Nepal have the similar type of nature and characteristics. And then SMEs, especially SMEs, how to revive these SMEs might be the problem afterwards of this pandemic. And this might be the another one. And then we are having a lot of return migrants worker here in Nepal. Some maybe the more than 150,000 people working in India also return to the country. And then even in Gulf countries and Malaysia and other countries, they return to the country. And then we are having some adjustment problem now and onwards. Might be the adjustment problem of those labor people over here. That is my some concern and queries. What's about in India? Might be India is also facing the same type of the problem, return migrants of the workers and these things. So thank you, Professor Sinha, again for giving this opportunity.
Thank you.
We got benefited very much.
Thank you very much. KC Ganesh, NTUC. Want to say something?
Not only thank you very much, Professor Sinha. I got this opportunity to hear all of you senior people from India. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Here is some net connection problem with my computer, so I could not say more things. I just want to share my feelings, though I am also working in trade union movement since last 30 years, especially focus in the banking sector. Now I am working in Nepal Trade Union Congress, the national center. The thing is, in this context of COVID pandemic, we need to sit together all the stakeholders, create a dialogue platform in various levels, like in company levels, industrial levels, province levels, and federal levels. If we can do, we can also create a tripartite plus dialogue platforms. That is the only one solution to respond the problem that has been created by this crisis. Thank you very much, Professor Sinha, for inviting me to join this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Sunil Shinde.
Thank you, Pravinji, for inviting me and listening to good people regarding all the labor problems. I have two questions in my mind. I am working for informal economic worker and organized worker also. In informal economy, beauty parlor union, domestic workers, app-based workers like Swiggy, Zomato, Dunzo, Ola, Uber, auto rickshaw. Now there is a question of their survival. Last 3-4 months they are at home, and how to go ahead is a big question mark. And what will be the what can I do for them? Please guide me. And there is a confusion made by our Prime Minister itself. When initially lockdown announced, he suddenly came on TV and announced everybody should remain at home. Everybody will be given salary.
What proposal you have? Forget about that.
That is then in companies now what happened? Workers are at some workers are working. Some of the workers are at home. The how to make them salary? It is the big question, because those who are in the lockdown at home, they are not getting salary. The 33% workers, they are on job. They are also getting salary, less salary. Then how to make them salary? This is also
a question in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Vijaya, you want to say something? Vijaya. Okay. Finally, R.S. Desai. Unmute. Vijaya?
Can
Yes,
you
sir.
hear me?
One moment, Vijaya. Desai ji, 1 minute रुकिए. Let Vijaya speak. Okay, Vijaya?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Actually, our coordinator, Kesab sir, has already spoken a bit. I just wanted to know that, like, when it comes to informal sector, adding to the others' view also, like informal sector are becoming most vulnerable in this lockdown period. And talking to that, in Nepal also, we have a lot of informal sectors. So how can we revive the informal sectors? Workers like the migrant workers have been returning to home, which is a similar condition in India. Also, we can see in the news and all. So how can we come together and work for this kind of issues, which focuses on the informal sector workers revival, as their social security is also been in halt, and still they're not being able to get their wages, and also what can be certain kind of gap that can be mitigated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Finally, Desai ji, R.S. Desai.
Yeah. Only 2-3 points, because this now post-pandemic. Can you hear me, Sinhaji?
Yeah.
Now post-pandemic, as it is said, a lot of industries are going to go for engaging automation. Almost now presently they're working from home also. In the past, it was only they were trying for working from home, but now anyhow it is being settling, working from home. I just want to know, in the future, this is going to be a phenomenon, working from home, post-pandemic. What is going to be the industrial relation for those who are working from home? Because they are literally converting their house into a workplace. They are using their own equipment, they are using their own power, energy, everything. Suppose tomorrow there is accident also, possibility. I am just trying to find out. So what are the conditions will be applicable to those who are working from home, whether it will be diluted? Another is that now all platform economy workers are there. Zomato, yeah, Ola, or whatever. This is going to be in the future employment of working from home on this type of platform of type workers, where there will not be any social security. They will only work that will flexible working. So that is my question, and how it will be handled to Arvind Sotuji. That is
Thank you.
There's one more question.
Okay.
That's one more question. I am suggesting that only presently I am whatever observing is that the companies are calling for only skilled workers, either by flight or special bus, special taxi. They are calling only skilled workers. They are not calling unskilled workers presently, which I have observed from the record also. And thirdly, immediately government has to form a committee at the level of Ministry of Labor and Employment with the representative trade union to concentrate and monitor how the pandemic has created a host of problems with the workers and how can we do it. But this is not happening. On other corporates, it is happening. They are having exchange of goods. Ministry of Labor, they have only issued one circular. After that, there is no follow. So this is my suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now I gave 1 to 2 minutes to each of the speakers to react on all the questions, all the submissions that have come. I know it's challenge. 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes is a challenge, but let's try. Let me start with Professor Rao. Again, problem. Let me start with Partha. Mr. Partha Mitra. Unmute, Aarti. Aarti, unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Two issues which I thought was important, which has been raised by the panelists and the subsequent questioners also. One is about the interface between automation and the labor. That is an important issue which is likely to come up because Professor Irudaya Rajan, if you know, who's a well-known migration specialist, he has kind of estimated and said that almost 30% of your migrant workers are not going to come back. So obviously, if they're not going to come back, then there's going to be a problem of labor shortages and all. So naturally, the automation issue would come up there, and the industries would need to take a call on that. The second issue was what Mr. Girish had raised about the companies not paying up and all that. The Labor Ministry circular was only a request. It did not have the moral force. It did not have the legal force. So there is something called a moral obligation and a legal obligation. The companies may not have had the legal obligation, but they could have had the moral obligation to pay it. But having said that, the MSME sector is really under crisis, and probably if the companies are not able to function, is not able to kind of wait through this pandemic, maybe we should think about a US CARES program, where it had provided for both for the enterprises to protect their employment and to persons who had kind of witnessed a fall in their income levels. Apart from the unemployment insurance, that's a separate program. But maybe there is a need for a US CARES kind of a program, because the Atmanirbhar package, although well intended, it has its limitations in the sense that we can do so much and no more on that. Obviously, that is not kind of able to see the crisis which we are going through. So we probably have to design newer policies, particularly for the organized sector, if I am to kind of understand the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanjeev?
I will just correct it.
One moment. You will come. Sanjeev?
Yeah, interesting conversation, and thank you all. Lots of perspectives. See, I just only have 2 points to sum up. One has very aptly been said over here. This is unprecedented. We have never seen anything like this, and we are actually evolving during this process. So what is right, what is wrong at this stage? Everybody is probably taking one day at a time. Not the moment at a time, and acting to that. What it is important that all stakeholders do discuss this openly, and therefore we as a country find out a solution to this. So here I would rather I say the employers and workers, this concept should go. We all are here. The tagline that came up when COVID started, we are in it together. I think that is the truth of today. That's one. Second thing is that I would also rather push on this aspect of the pace of transformation that is happening is actually much faster than we ever anticipated. So therefore, for all of us, it is important to keep to keep pace with it, both for the workers and here we are talking only of the workers, the informal sector, and so on and so forth. What happens to the so-called white-collar jobs as well? I'm not talking management at this stage, but there are a lot of people who are also losing jobs, and they also don't have the protection of the law. As we see in this country. So I think all of this will come up very soon. I'm not waiting for some day, but I'm sure, and across all levels, this is going to come up to certain levels where we will have a little more forward-looking systems, like as Mr. Mitra said, that US CARES, the UK type social benefits, maybe so on and so forth. I'm sure it is evolving. Let us keep our minds open. Let's all work together. And the case now is that India has to come up. With due respect and greetings to our friends from Nepal. Any country that is going through this has to really come up. Yes, there are some challenges that we have never expected, right? And I'm sure the only way to get out of that is mutual dialogue and the forward-looking outlook.
Thank you. Arvind?
Yeah, just I would like to make only one correction, that it was not a voluntary thing. It was basically order of Ministry of Home Affairs that the lockdown period should be considered that the workers or the employees were on duty, and if they are on duty, so that is the payment is compulsory. So it's not a voluntary. It's not voluntary, means basically that voluntarism was given by the prime minister, but the order was very clear, and the matter is in Supreme Court, and what is happening in the Supreme Court, that I don't want to talk about. But the thing is that most important aspect that there was a order, and that
Okay.
order has been challenged in the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And the result is till we are waiting for the result. Now, just I will talk about the Mr. Desai question. I am of the opinion that there is a need to develop a employment, what kind of employment model we would like to introduce in this country, and at the same time, is there is any kind of possibility the social security? I'm not talking about the social security in a conventional manner, but the thing is that in future, job security will seems to be little bit difficult. So is there any kind of possibility to movement from job security to income security? कुछ टाइम के लिए इनकम सिक्योरिटी देना, ऐसा ऐसा कुछ मॉडल बना सकते हैं क्या? Now a lot of people are talking about universal minimum income and all that kind of thing, but is there any kind of possibility, and the institution like yours can take up the initiative, and people like us are there to support you. Praveen Sinha को मैं बोल रहा हूँ.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because already, and those who are interested, I have already developed a model. वो करीबन 12-15 पेजेस का है, उसका मैंने actuarial calculations भी करके रखा है. Those who are interested, I am ready to share that whole thing with them.
We will examine that one. Anup?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Of course, a lot of the questions which have been raised, pertain to the informal sector and the kind of challenges the informal sector raises, and since our friends from Nepal were also here in this webinar, so their concerns also pertains to the large informal sector. I think, for first and foremost, of course, our governments were not, definitely not prepared for this kind of crisis. So whether it is, the returning migrants within the country, or whether it is the migrants, coming from abroad, this, of course, the rehabilitation of the migrants is definitely a daunting task. So for the informal sector workers, of course, the primary concern, at this juncture is to provide, basic income and food support, and then, of course, followed by some kind of employment. In India, of course, we have this Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee program, which I think, has emerged as the sole messiah for providing the employment in the informal sector. The budgets have also been increased by 40,000 crores, and some slight wage increase has also been done, I think, to 202 rupees. But at least that is the first line of defense, for providing some kind of subsistence level of wages to the workers. I think at the focus and I think the crux still remains, how we can evolve a comprehensive social protection program for the informal sector workers. It ranges from everyone. Desai Saab mentioned about the platform workers, whether it is construction workers. Shindeji mentioned about beauticians, the entire category of this kind of workforce. I think there has to be a basic social protection program. I had mentioned about construction workers. They were able to immediately get some support. I mean, the quantum, of course, varied, but then at least there was a fallback position wherein, we had some state level corpuses available, wherein, they could be tapped and some kind of basic support could be provided. Had this not been there, the conditions would have been further worsened. Also, I would like to mention here, yesterday I was reading an article which was about Kerala, and it talked about migrant workers who were working in the plantation sector in Kerala. So many of these migrant workers working in the plantation sector, they never went back to their native places. They decided they will stay back because the kind of wages they were getting, the kind of social benefits they were getting, they knew they are not going to the purpose of going back home would never serve them. So here was a case wherein the migrants decided that they will be staying back, and because the working conditions and the social protection measures were in place, and they were quite happy with that. Yeah, I think this is something which really needs to be seen at the state or the center level. The social issue of social protection. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Anup. We come to in close of this webinar, although in fact we have taken slightly more time than what we had intended. But what do I take? Dr. Das?
Yes, so I thought that I will comment something.
Yeah.
Let me say that, this incident, it will transform the workplace of white collar workers, especially those works which are IT enabled service, that call centers type of thing. If you look at the developed country in USA, there were call centers in the 80s, but all this work, because of cost cutting, they were transferred to home. So in USA, the call center activities are done from home, individual home. So since this will become also cost saving, many organizations, some of the works may be transformed to home. So for the white collar workers, this transformation for IT enabled service firm, this is likely to happen. Another thing that the last speaker, you are speaking about plantation workers. Plantation workers cannot be compared with others because plantation workers get shelters, they get food. So that is there, which is not there for other contractor worker. They have to find place to stay. Whereas in plantation, the situation is totally different. So anyhow, but there are challenges. So let us see what happens.
Okay, what I take from your input and intervention by all those who are participating, that insofar COVID is concerned, insofar coronavirus is concerned, it is there to stay, whether permanently or not, but it is there to stay with or without with or without medicine. And which implies that the conditions that has been put with regard to social distancing, with regard to other conditionality of work, that will also be remain for longer time to come. Now, if that is the case, then there will be changes in the world of work, in the workplace, first of all. The nature of work will change in the sense that the whole structure of companies will either shift, either will have less people on the shop floor and remaining in the house, whichever companies that can do, or like Dr. Das said, that IT companies will definitely move on to. It has already, in fact, started. It has already started, and we will see even in the case of education sector, we will find that the use of electronic media will become so extensively that people will work from the house to deliver things. So there will be definitely changes, and these changes will impact both the employer and the workman. Employer in the sense that they have the fixed structure already made. Now that has to be readjusted, the whole thing. And that is a cost factor. The new machine has to come, and also the other factor has to come. Insofar the workman is concerned, somebody said that 30% of the work people may not come back, the migrant people. Even those who are permanently stationed, even they will not find job because of this 30%, 50% conditionality, that there will be some replacement of human resource with that of machines, then what will happen to the relationship between employer and employee? The relationship between employer and employee is already at a difficult stage as of now. We find that the instrument of social dialogue, either at the national level or the works committee at the shop floor level, is almost defunct. And in that case, when you find that the new conditionalities are coming, both employer and employee or the workman has to rethink about the process. I agree with what Arvind said, that we have to, intention. Intention has to be good and all those things. But intention is the outcome. We have to look at the steps that makes intention good. In the same way, also the condition of work, we have to see what are the steps within the condition that makes the condition of work decent. Finally, there are laws, and these laws were made in 1923, 1926, 1979, and all those things. The world has changed. India has changed. Workplace has changed. And as such, there is need that the instrument should also change. Not to dilute anybody's rights, but also to see that under the new conditions, how both parties can work amicably, retain their interest and retain their rights, which are equitable, and at the same time, in the same time, let the business to survive. With these concluding remarks, I thank all the speakers. All the speakers, thank you very much for their input, and all the participants also for their participation and also input that they have made. It was a pleasure meeting all of you and interacting with all of you. And thanks to FES for providing the necessary support, and Aarti for being such a nice colleague. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, all of you.
Bye.
Bye, Professor Kesab. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Professor. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving this opportunity.
Bye, Android. Bye, Android.
Yeah.
Android, bye.
Bye.
Okay, Partha, see you. Aarti, see you. Anup, see you.
Bye.
Praveen, see you.
Bye.
Sushil, see you. Okay, bye. Bye, Vijaya. Bye, Manoj. Bye, Sunil. Bye, Ganesh. See you soon with new subject and one new day. Thank you, Aarti.
Thanks. I'm ending the meeting, Praveen, so everybody will be gone.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Savant.
Thank you. There is some disruption in between.
No problem. No problem.
Connection. So that otherwise it's very good.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Aarti.
Bye, Aarti.